It's weekly download time. It's weekly download time. It's weekly download time. Oh yeah, it's download time. It's weekly download time. And now we're going to learn some stuff about flow and about getting in the zone, about focus, about finding your purpose in life and self-actualization. All of that good stuff and more will be covered on this very day. So I'm really, really excited. This is a topic that I care very deeply about. And it came up during our beta calls for the new beta program that is top secret. But during the beta calls, I realized that there was no weekly download about flow. And that is just, it's criminal. That's not allowed. That is just an egregious oversight. So I'm going to do my best today to talk about flow and help you to be able to get into the zone and be able to achieve a state of flow when you are working. Because really, properly understood, the entirety of everything that I teach in the dojo is all about achieving this mind state. Since the very, very beginning, since the ill methodology, the first lectures of the ill methodology, it was, this is the goal of everything. Okay, because properly understood, the creative project is not something that, or the creative endeavor is not something that you think up. It's something that you get down. It's not something that you concoct with your rational mind. It's something that you channel, something that comes from the subconscious mind, or something, if you are a more spiritual person, something that comes from the outside. But it's really something that comes from beyond the rational self. Okay, this is very, very important to understand. It comes from a place that is beyond the rational self. So when you're opening those floodgates out, it you will tap into powers that are beyond what your limited mind can conceive, and you can tap into peak performance and tap into abilities that you did not know you possess. And this is really, when you talk to people who are great artists, when you talk to people that are great athletes, again and again and again in the study of excellent performance, they ask them what the experience was like of, running a 4 minute mile, or, or getting an Olympic gold medal, or of creating the best track that they've ever made, or what have you. And nearly universally, there is a description of a state where basically the rational mind stops. A lot of the time, there is a dissolution of the sense of ego, a dissolution of the sense that I am an agent of these actions, which is why, I describe it as coming from beyond the rational self, right? Is the ego is kind of the psychological, fancy psychological word for the sense of self, and there is a cessation of this sense of self, and the powers that are beyond the self flow through. And many people will say, well, all these other studio sessions were work, but when I wrote that one hit, it was like it wrote itself, and all I had to do was just let it happen, right? And that's really where you want to get. My track More Tea, many people's favorite ill.gates track. That track happened in 4 hours. We had time to go out for dinner after. Trapezoid happened in about the same amount of time. Never Alone, my collab with Mimosa, which is still to date my most played track on my SoundCloud, that also was just a matter of hours. There are other tracks that I'll spend years on and work and work and work and work and work, and they don't come out half as good as the tracks that just write themselves when you're in the flow state. So what can we know about the flow state? How can we get there? Okay, well, I want to draw your attention to two very cool books that I found out after I first started teaching about flow. This was, geez, way back in like 2008 when I was teaching the workshop that went on to become the ill methodology. I was listening to a lot of Alan Watts, and in this one Alan Watts lecture, he described the ideal state of a martial artist when they're entering combat as Wu Nian or Mu Nian, depending on which translation system. I've tried Googling this. I can't find this anywhere. The only mention of it I find is in this one old school Alan Watts lecture. But basically, if you're in a sword fight, you don't have time to think about what you're doing, because if you stop, like in Star Wars or whatever, and you hear Yoda going like, Luke, use the Force or whatever, your head's cut off. Like, that's just like, sword fights are like 10 seconds long, most sword fights, right? So if you're stopping to think, if you're stopping to recall your strategies or remember what Yoda said, you're dead, right? So Wu or Mu, in Chinese, I'm probably saying those things, Wu or Mu, it means like no or non, and then Nian is like thought. So Wu Nian or Mu Nian is like no thought, right? But it's actually, properly understood, more like no hesitation or flow. And it's said that, at least Alan Watts, when he described this mind state, as in any mind state of mindfulness, is often described as the mind is as clear as a mirror and reflects the authentic reality just as quickly. Okay. So in Zen Buddhism, right, there's the mirror is often also used as a metaphor. We had a little brief discussion of Zen too, but Zen basically is Buddhism minus all of the mythology. And its big breakthrough was a school of sudden enlightenment. Okay. And the story of the creation of Zen goes, there is a monastery, and the master, and this is like after Bodhidharma came up from India, because Buddhism started in India, let's not forget, came across the Himalayas and up into China, and was going through China. And the Zen school was originally the Chan school. Zen is the Japanese translation of the Chinese word Chan. And basically, had Bodhidharma had come through bringing all these teachings, and there's this remote monastery, and the master is trying to teach these teachings, and they'd kind of gone down through the years, and they had come with a lot of the mythological trappings of Hinduism, because Buddhism was started in India, right? And generally, when you're starting a religion, it's got to be somewhat like the religions that it came up with. So early Buddhism, and in the more like kind of traditional old school Buddhism, there's a lot of this like mythology and stuff. And basically, on its way from India to China and Japan, Buddhism kind of became like more distilled and mingled with like Taoist philosophy, and from China, which is like the yin yang and the I Ching and stuff, are like kind of traditional Chinese philosophy. But so anyway, there's this monastery, and they've been studying this like old school Bodhidharma Buddhism for a while, and there's this kind of like this like tradition come up where things have become really ornate, and there's all these kind of like gods and demigods and myths and stuff to keep track of. And the students are so in awe of the Buddha that they've forgotten that they have Buddha nature inherently. Buddha nature is in all of us. That's like what they call the spark of the divine, And you don't have to believe in like woo woo magic to believe in Buddha nature. Like, Buddhism is more of a philosophy than it is a religion. There are some mythological trappings, but they were predominantly shed in this brilliant moment of the creation of the Chan school on its way to become Zen in Japan. So anyway, so the monks are all sitting around, and the master is like giving them this riddle, and he gives them this mirror, and he's like, how does one clean the mirror? And the mirror representing the mind, right? So all of these monks are they're going on and on and on. They're like, okay, well, in such and such a myth, when Buddha was confronted with Mara, the demon of illusion, they had a conversation, and Buddha said this, which I interpret to mean that, and then blah 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 blah, and they're just going on and on and on for days. And every time they suggest something to the master, he's like, no, back to the drawing board, guys. Back to the drawing board, guys. And they go on and on and on, just debating this endlessly until the janitor comes up and he points at the mirror and he goes, "You idiots, the mirror is already clean. I clean that shit every day. It came clean. I keep the mirror clean. The mirror's clean. Like, it's already clean. Look at it. It's already clean." And in that moment, the students realize that the mirror is already clean, that their mind already possessed Buddha nature. And in that moment, they made their amazing leap to becoming enlightened. Well, whatever you want to call it. But the point is, right, that there is waning. Waning, I think, was the Sutra of Waning. I think that's right. It's been a while since I studied this stuff, Mike. But yeah, I think waning is Huineng. Good comment from the chat. I'm pretty sure waning was the guy. But yeah, so anyway, the point is, right, that the mind can get in its own way. That it's easy to think that the path to enlightenment is through vigorous study and absorbing knowledge and regurgitating it. But it's not. It's not. The path can be instantaneous. It can be short. It can be found anywhere. But the problem is we get in our own way. So how do we get our own way? How do we achieve mu nyen, non-thought? How do we achieve a state of non-thought where we are unfettered? Well, mindfulness meditation is one of the best things you can ever do in your life. I was a pretty big fan of Tim Ferriss until he had the Koch brothers on this show and was just like putting that big billionaire dick in his mouth and just being like, "Oh yeah, I'm a bootlicker. Yay. Thank you for destroying the environment, Koch brothers." And I was just like, "Sorry, Tim, I love you, but I can't get down with this bootlicking anymore." But before that point, I did learn a lot from Tim Ferriss, and maybe I'm throwing out the baby with the bootlicking bathwater, but whatever. Anyway, he has all these amazing high-level people on his podcast, and he's got this incredible book called Tribe of Mentors. That's awesome, and you should definitely read the 4-Hour Workweek. It's an incredible book. But basically every single time he interviews one of these top performers, they all have some kind of a mindfulness meditation habit or some kind of a meditation habit that helps them to get there. Okay. So mindfulness meditation, people talk about it like it's this big woo-woo thing. Like it's like all like, you got to believe in like the demon gods and reincarnation and all this shit. But you totally do not. You totally do not. Mindfulness meditation is literally just the self observing the mind. Okay? And there is a temptation, like, because brains are really tricky things. They'll try to trick you into thinking that they are you, and that you're like this like gushy gray pilot pulling levers upstairs, and this like meaty body is like your vehicle or whatever. And that's not true. The mind, there is mind in all parts of the body, and there is mind in all inanimate matter when you think about it, right? Because like let's say you buy a bottle of water. You go to the store and you buy a bottle of water. Well, before you buy that bottle of water, that water is someone else's property, and it's the property of a corporation, and that corporation has sold it to the shopkeeper who now owns that property, and he's selling it to you. So then you take other not self property and you take off the lid, and then you drink it, and it goes into your cells, and then that becomes you, and then you are that water. That's crazy. And then later, after it's you for a while, you pee it out and you're like, ew, that's disgusting. Don't touch that. Same water. First, it was someone else's property that you paid for. Then it was part of you and your conscious field that is you. And then it's disgusting garbage and should be, you'd pay someone to get rid of it.